Hey everyone, today I'm working on an 8x8 scrapbook page. This is for a scrapbook I've been working on for a friend of mine who had a little girl. And so this page is going to be pretty girly, lots of pink. I'm starting out with a dark pink piece of textured cardstock from Stampin' Up! And I'm going to layer a lighter piece on top of that. And there's Noodle coming for a visit. So I'm just trimming this 8.5 by 11 down to 8 by 8. And now I'm taking a lighter pink piece of cardstock and I'm going to layer it on top of it. So I'm using my grid paper or my grid to try to figure out about how large a mat I want. And I decided I wanted, I figured a 1/2 inch around would be a good size. Just using a photo I have of my daughter as kind of my visual aid to try to get my dimensions right. So I'm cutting down this piece of cardstock to 7 by 7 inches, and then I'm going to layer it on top of the dark pink. When I did that, I realized I didn't really care for the size of that mat. I thought it was a little bit too big for too much dark pink, so I cut another piece down, and this time I made it 7.5 by 7.5, which would give me a 1/4 inch border around, and I like that a lot better. I decided I wanted to keep some of this extra dark pink cardstock that was just going to end up being lost under the layers of paper. So I'm just cutting out the center of this page, and I do this occasionally on my scrapbooks, not all the time, but sometimes I do. I gave myself about a 3/4 inch, I think it was about a 3/4 inch border around the paper, and then I'm just going to add some tape runner, or some snail adhesive, around the edge of the pink cardstock. Any dry adhesive would work. I like the dry tape runners personally. They just work the best for me. And again, using my grid to make sure I have a straight 1/4 inch border all the way around these papers. The photo mat that I'm going to cut is going to fit a standard 4 by 6 inch photo. The person I'm making the scrapbook for doesn't scrapbook on her own, so I really wanted to make this easy for her to just put in regular pictures without having to do a whole lot of additional work by cutting down pictures to something that, for something that she might not do normally. So this ended up being a 4.25 by 6.25 mat, just in white cardstock. And I've wanted to add some ribbon to the project, so I'm pulling out some of the different ribbons that I thought might match. This one does match that dark pink cardstock. It's a Mambo cardstock, Mambo ribbon that matches the Mambo cardstock. And those are from Stampin' Up! And then this plaid ribbon is a ribbon I've had for ages. I found it in the clearance bin at Michael's, and I've never used it, so I thought I'd pull it out and see if it would work here. I liked it. I thought that the pink worked well with the pinks that I was using here, and I really liked it when I layered the polka dot on top of it. Here I'm pulling out some chipboard from Stampin' Up! I think this is called So Tweet or something like that. I think it's So Tweet. Chipboard pack. It comes with birds and owls and flowers and branches and leaves and the whole thing. And I pulled 3 different size items. I pulled a large bird, which ended up being too big. And then I have the smaller bird that it was just too small, got lost. And I liked the size of this owl, but I wasn't sure how I would use it. So I started pulling out these vellum embellishments from Deja Vus, from a kit that I had from them. I'm using some of this on other pages of my scrapbook, so this kind of helps continue it on. I ended up finding one that was more good night themed, so I decided to do that. And now I'm just putting some white craft ink on my chipboard as kind of a base layer because I wanted to color this owl pink. And craft ink takes a while to dry, so I wanted to speed it up by using my heat gun. And here I am layering some Pretty in Pink ink on top of my owl. And just to save my fingers from getting completely stained, I am using tweezers to stain or to color these the small hearts and the beak from the owl. Now you can see that it's discoloring my ink pad. That craft ink still wasn't dry even after I put the heat gun to it for a while. And here I am feeling it and realizing it's still not dry, and it kind of had a gray look to it. I wasn't really happy with what was happening here. So when worse comes to worse, pull out the gesso. So I'm just wiping off what's still kind of wet on this little owl, and I'm adding a layer of gesso, which I know will give me a good white cover on top of this piece, which will help me when I put my colored ink on top of it again. And while I'm waiting for that to dry, I went ahead and layered my ribbons on top of each other with some tape, and then I'm attaching it to the mat. And again, using my grid to make sure that I've got it lined up so it's straight. And just taking a peek there. And just tucking it under that lighter pink cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead and put my mat down as well. Just up in the corner. And then I'm attaching the little vellum quote. I layered it, backed it with white cardstock, and then layered it on top of some more of that melon cardstock. And now I'm coloring my owl with that pretty pink, and you can see this time the color was much better. And then I went ahead and recolored the little beak and the eyes, the little hearts, with the darker pink, the Mambo ink. And I'm just going to pop this up with some dimensionals. Now, even though my gesso had dried, the ink on top of it hadn't completely dried, so as I'm moving it around, I'm feeling that my fingers are getting covered in ink again. So I decided, rather than pulling it off and trying to re-ink it again, I would just kind of dab at it with the paper towel, and it gave it kind of not really a mottled appearance, but it wasn't, I don't know, it kind of texturized it a little bit. And I'm using my white gel pen to go around the owl. I thought it would stand out more than it does. It's really hard to see it on the video. You can see it in person much better than you can on video, but it is still very light. It's not a large, really deep contrast. But that pretty much finishes up the scrapbook page, and just to give you an idea with what it would look like with a picture. My daughter playing cowgirl. But there you go. Anyway, I hope you like it.